My name is Linda, and I'm a 55-year-old widow. I currently live in New York with my daughter. My daughter, a 25-year-old office worker, is quite beautiful, even from my perspective. That's why she often seems troubled by unwanted attention from creepy men and unpleasant experiences. Recently, she mentioned feeling uncomfortable due to an incident on the subway. Hearing only this, it might seem like she's only had hardships, but there have been good times too. She's been quite popular. Since middle school, boys have never left her alone. Although she's quite shy, she somehow ended up dating boys who approached her. Being my only daughter, I was worried, but it seems she enjoyed her school days. However, after advancing to a women's college, she was mostly surrounded by girls. During her time at the women's college, she didn't interact much with boys and said she didn't need a boyfriend. I hope that one day she'll have a happy marriage. That's because my own marriage was short-lived. My husband, her father, passed away at a young age. He worked in sales and was always driving. I think salespeople who have to make rounds outside, whether under the scorching sun or in the snow, really have it tough. Back then, I was a full-time housewife taking care of our baby daughter. My husband usually came home just before the midnight. He worked for a company with a lot of overtime, so he was always exhausted. But he never got angry, even if I hadn't finished the housework, and he would wash the dishes left in the sink. After taking a bath, he would also meticulously clean the bathroom. He was a good husband. Then, one day, he suddenly never returned home. He made way for a car that was tailgating him while on the highway. That car, perhaps frustrated at being overtaken by my husband in the passing lane, flashed its lights and honked like a maniac. This is what I heard later from someone who witnessed the scene. Despite my husband moving out of the way, the tailgating driver continued to pursue him. Frightened of being tailgated again, my husband moved back into the passing lane. But the other car, accelerating to full throttle, crashed into him with such force. Both cars were wrecked in the collision. My husband was wearing a seatbelt, and there were airbags, but he died from hitting his head on the glass. Furthermore, flames broke out, and the surrounding area turned into a sea of fire. The other car was also destroyed, and its driver was confirmed dead at the scene. I remember hearing about a terrible accident on the highway that made the news. Witnesses testified that my husband was not at fault. But what followed was a nightmare. Unbelievably, the other driver was not insured. It was a hopeless situation. So even when I thought about claiming compensation, it seemed impossible, leaving me in a state of panic. With the other driver deceased and uninsured, I felt despair, wondering if there was anything to be claimed at all. It's not that I wanted money, but it felt terribly unfair that my husband had died. I thought about taking legal action, but people around me made heartless comments. Being young at the time, I was the subject of curiosity and gossip among the neighborhood ladies. Linda, even if you go to court, it's pointless. After all, the other driver is deceased and was a loner, right? You won't get any compensation. So why not just give up? Well, yes, but I understand you're sad about your husband's passing, but you have survivor's benefits and life insurance, right? You'll manage somehow. Do you really need to cling to money? Wait, no, it's not about the money. I just wanted to clear my husband's name. But there's no one to take revenge on, and you can't even do that now. Instead, you need to move forward. You're still young. And you can start over. You're only in your 20s, why not remarry? That would secure your life, right? I can't imagine being with anyone other than my husband. Well, you say that, but you are meant to be supported. Indeed, I was supported. As a homemaker, I was under my husband's care and lived a comfortable life. But I never wanted to leech off a man, nor did I consider finding someone new to support me after that. It's not that I think being a homemaker or remarrying is bad. It's just that it wasn't for me. My husband and I married after a great love affair, so I couldn't possibly think of being with anyone else after he was gone. He was the one I decided to be with till the end, no matter what. Why did he have to leave so soon? And to think, it was due to a tragic accident. After all these hardships, I just want my daughter to be happy. If she could live a long, healthy, and happy life with the husband she loves, that would be enough for me. One day, my daughter came to me with a smile, saying she had something to tell me. It seems her boyfriend proposed to her. I knew she had a boyfriend, but I hadn't met him. I wondered how he proposed. Tyler gave me an engagement ring yesterday. It's from Harry Winston. Look, look. Oh, it's absolutely gorgeous. What does Tyler do for work? He's a salesman at the major A bank. Oh, the famous A bank. He must be a very respectable person. He must have done well in his studies too. Yes, he graduated from K University's law school, so he's really smart. And Tyler's father works in investment banking. His mother is a homemaker. Wow, truly an elite family. That's wonderful. And we were talking yesterday, and we'd like to pay a visit to introduce ourselves. We're planning to go to Tyler's house together. He said he'd like you to come along too, Mom. I'd feel uneasy going alone. Well, if that's the case, I suppose it's fine. Thank you, Mom. I'll be getting married soon. My daughter was wearing a gorgeous ring and beaming with joy. Then she carefully placed it back in its box, treating it like a treasure. Given it's from such a renowned brand, it must have been incredibly expensive. I'm not very knowledgeable about jewelry, but considering the size of the diamond in the center, I thought it might cost over $10,000. I've seen similar items in fashion magazines I occasionally read, but that's just a guess without any proof. To be able to afford such an extravagant ring, he must be wealthy. Indeed, I've heard that salaries at major banks are incredibly high. Top earners there can easily make about $80,000 at a young age. With the average salary being around $40,000, they're earning double that. Considering his father also works at a major bank, they must be quite wealthy. Then, the day came for my daughter and me to make our visit. Not wanting to overdress, I chose a subdued black dress with a cardigan and a beige handbag. I opted for beige for the bag and shoes to avoid looking too much like I was in mourning, given the predominance of black. My daughter was checking her boyfriend's family home address on her phone. Though he lives alone in a different apartment, his family home seems to be a bit away. Their family home is an apartment, but not just any apartment. It's actually a high-rise luxury condominium. Entering the apartment, I couldn't help but think, this really is a family of major bank employees. We arrived at Tyler's family home. Since they mentioned they would be waiting, I assumed they were already inside. When I rang the doorbell, a mother drenched in sequins appeared. Her dress was so glittery, I wondered if she was about to perform at a New Year's music show. The mother's dress was adorned with pink sequins, but she added a purple shawl over it and wore heavy makeup, which made her appearance even more eccentric. Please come in, you must be Amy. Welcome. Thank you very much. Nice to meet you, I'm Linda, her mother. Nice to meet you. Oh my, such a plain outfit you have on. I've never seen such a poor-looking dress. Excuse me? Oh, it's nothing really. I was momentarily stunned by her remark. I couldn't grasp what she was saying and was left speechless. Was she looking down on me? But why should I be looked down upon? I've never met her before, so there was no reason for her to belittle me. I decided it must have been a misunderstanding. Perhaps she's just the type to speak her mind without thinking. Still, I had to remind myself that while it might be a bit troubling, she probably meant no harm. The interior was impressive, with the living room alone being quite spacious. A large sofa was placed in the center of the room, where the father was seated. The father was wearing calm beige trousers and a gray vest. The formal attire worn inside the house might be for the marriage meeting. But I had the impression that such dressing could be part of their usual attire. It seemed like he was accustomed to wearing it, as if it were his regular casual wear. Then, from somewhere, my daughter's boyfriend Tyler arrived. He had the appearance of a fine young man, the epitome of freshness. The mother then kindly suggested that we take a seat on the sofa. The sofa was U-shaped, spacious enough to comfortably accommodate 4 people with room to spare. My daughter and I were seated at one end of the sofa. The mother went to prepare some drinks for us. The mother, who brought us the drinks, greeted us with a smile. Although her smile appeared malicious earlier, this time it was very friendly. I decided to chalk it up to my misunderstanding. It would be rude to think ill of someone I've just met. I realized my own character flaws. However, it turned out to be a misunderstanding indeed. Because as the marriage meeting commenced, my daughter and I were about to experience something incredibly unpleasant. Tyler, the boyfriend, sat between his parents, and the marriage meeting began. There was a brief greeting from him, but I felt a bit uneasy because there was no statement like, "I will cherish your daughter," directed towards me. Perhaps he avoided it because there was no father to address. Indeed, since our family is without a husband, it's impossible to address my daughter's father, who was my husband. After all, he has already passed away. However, I thought it would be appropriate for him to at least assure me, the mother, that he would cherish and ensure the happiness of my daughter. Maybe he was just too nervous to remember his lines. Despite the grand ring he gave, I couldn't help but feel a bit disappointed. Then it was our turn to speak. First, my daughter introduced herself. "I'm Amy, and I'm in a relationship with Tyler. We've gotten engaged. He proposed, and I also wish to marry him. Please give us your blessing and accept our marriage." "Well, yes, but, you see, Amy, it's just that. I hate to say it, but it's because you come from a rough background." I was taken aback, doubting my ears for a moment. They suddenly started criticizing my daughter, saying she was poorly raised. I've always believed I raised her well, facing her directly no matter how busy I was. And she grew up straight and true, never going astray. Losing her father at a young age must have been tough on her. Yet, she never complained to me about such hardships. I wondered why they would make such remarks, and then the father made an even more unbelievable statement. "So, it seems you come from a single-parent family, but what does your mother do for work? Is it what I think it is? Given it's a single-parent household, perhaps picking up trash? Well, janitorial work seems fitting for singles, doesn't it? Single mothers can only do so much, after all." Well, that's... Or maybe you're a factory worker. Doing monotonous tasks and wasting your days away, surely? Perhaps just assembling parts in a factory, right? That's so different from us. Tyler and I are elite bankers at a major bank. Indeed, dear. With both you and Tyler being bankers at a renowned bank. It just wouldn't do if the bride comes from a single-parent family and her mother is a trash collector. It wouldn't be a good match at all. Right, that's what I thought. You're stuck in a menial job, aren't you? Well, it can't be helped. People from single-parent families usually lack education and are, frankly, not very bright, so they end up in low-end jobs, don't they? Oh, how distressing. The only reason I'm able to be a stay-at-home spouse is because I attended a prestigious college, worked in an administrative role at a bank, and then met my husband. I have nothing to complain about with my husband and son, who are both outstanding. However, I'm troubled by the imbalance when the woman our son is marrying comes from a single-parent household, and her mother works in waste management. I feel it's an unfair stigma, and I worry it reflects on us. Oh, how dreadful. The mother pinched her nose, making a gesture as if to suggest that I smelled bad. I always maintain cleanliness and certainly do not have an odor. I was so frustrated when I heard that out of the blue, so I decided to talk back. Actually, I'm not a garbage collector. I'm a lawyer. What? Really? A lawyer, you say? Yes, a lawyer. I'm the managing partner at Sunflower General Law Office. That's the place with the advertisement, right? The Sunflower General Law firm that's expanded nationwide. Yes, it started as a small office, but as we attracted many talented lawyers, it grew to its current size. Thanks to that, I'm incredibly busy and the firm is very profitable. Would you like to know the annual revenue? Well, to make it simpler, I'll just tell you about my take-home pay. It's roughly $1 million. $1 million? What are you saying? But, you come from a single-parent family. And Tyler told me you were only a high school graduate. It's impossible for someone who hasn't been to university to become a lawyer. Please, don't lie. You really are lying, aren't you? Without studying in a law faculty, you wouldn't have the necessary legal knowledge, even for the old bar exam. You're trying to deceive us with such lies, but it's pointless. Are you targeting our wealth? Because we're wealthy. You must be trying to ingratiate yourself with us. Unfortunately, I have no interest in ingratiating myself. In fact, my family is wealthier. I didn't physically attend a university but did go through a distance learning program. After high school, I worked as an office worker at a general company, then met my husband and left my job when we got married. However, after my husband passed away, I was determined to become a lawyer. So I studied at a distance learning university while raising my daughter and passed the bar exam on my first attempt. So, you're really saying you're the managing partner of Sunflower General Law Firm? Yes, that's correct. Oh, here's my business card. I always carry them with me so I can work from anywhere. Here you go. I have a habit of carrying business cards everywhere, so I pulled one out of my card holder and handed it to the father. Upon seeing the business card with my photo, it seemed he finally understood that I was indeed the head of a law firm. Since I don't appear in the TV advertisement, he seemed skeptical at first. But as it became clear that I am genuinely a lawyer, he seemed to become frightened. You've been saying all sorts of things about us, but isn't that considered an insult? I hope it doesn't constitute a criminal offense. Well, please wait a moment. I didn't mean any harm. Me too. Can you please stop being so assertive all of a sudden? Isn't this an abuse of your professional position? I'm not abusing my position as a lawyer. I'm upset as an individual who has been insulted. While I can tolerate it, I wouldn't want my daughter to marry into a family like yours, with people like you as in-laws. Tyler, you've been silent this whole time. What do you think? Well. Hey, Tyler, why did you propose to me? If I had known your parents were this cruel, I wouldn't have said yes. What was your real intention? I thought Amy would do anything I told her to because, I'm busy with work and I don't want to bother with household chores. So, I wanted someone who would become my wife to do everything for me. That's why I proposed to Amy. It's convenient to have a servant at home, right? A servant, you say? A wife is essentially a servant, right? If I had a servant who did everything I said, I could relax and focus on my work. The work Amy does seems simple enough that anyone could do it, right? But I work at a prestigious bank as a loan officer, where mistakes are not tolerated. Women are simple, inferior to men, and I wondered if she would devote herself to me. Amy really is simple. Especially to accept a recycled engagement ring. What do you mean by that? So, that ring was actually given to a previous girlfriend when I proposed to her. Then, she found out about my cheating and returned it to me. I can't believe this. How awful. I never thought Tyler could be such a person. Give me back my precious time. Isn't it Amy's fault for falling for me? I thought a girl from a single-parent family might be okay, but as expected, my parents opposed it. And yet, you being a lawyer's daughter, weren't you the one deceiving me? I haven't deceived anyone. It's just that you never asked about my mother's job, so I didn't tell you. But you're actually the head of a super famous law firm group, right? And you're telling me your net annual income is $1 million? Are you kidding me? You're wealthier than us. And here we are, barely making ends meet. Well, living in a high-rise luxury apartment doesn't exactly scream barely making ends meet though. Our rent is $5,000, and my mother shops at expensive stores, putting us nearly in debt. I thought your salary could help. You work at a decent company, right? Your salary must be over $2,000. Were you planning to use all of my salary for your lavish lifestyle? Oh, how despicable. I was foolish to have fallen for such a man. Let's go home. Mom. Indeed, it's best to call off the marriage with such a person. There's no further need for us to stay, it's a waste of time being here. Please wait a moment. We'd be in trouble if we let someone with a net income of $1 million slip away. Please, let Amy marry my son. Is that so? I couldn't help but let my voice sound strange due to the sheer nonsense of it all. Realizing that Tyler was a terrible man, I decided to leave immediately, but it seems his father was dazzled by my annual income. Initially, he looked down on us because we were a single-parent family, but the moment he found out about my good income, he completely changed his tune. And then he had the audacity to suggest my daughter marry his foolish son. I thought to myself, I'm not that foolish. Why on earth do I have to deal with this family? Marriage is a union between two families, so if my daughter married Tyler, I would have to interact with them as relatives. Dealing with this insane family could potentially destroy my own sanity. I couldn't make sense of anything they were saying and decided to ignore the father and leave with my daughter. But the mother grabbed my sleeve and wouldn't let go. Her face was desperate, and no offense, but it reminded me of an evil witch. Chasing after me while huffing and puffing, and grabbing at my sleeve, she was far more terrifying than any horror movie I've seen. She must think of me as a walking bag of money, or an ATM. I won't let you leave. You're not going anywhere until your daughter agreed to marry my Tyler. Please. Let your daughter marry him and become part of our family. Oh, how I look forward to your support from here on. I never intended to offer support, and I'd like to drop the marriage talk, okay? Right, Amy? We're done with this family, aren't we? Yes, marrying into this family would drive anyone insane. I'll start a new romance instead. Goodbye. Wait a minute. Are you perhaps misunderstanding something? Even if Tyler and I were to marry, why would my mother need to provide financial support? The whole notion is absurd. It's true that Tyler and your father work at a well-known bank. But isn't a rent of $5,000 excessively high and beyond your means? And you say you're struggling because you only shop at high-end supermarkets. But couldn't you save money by being more frugal? But I want to indulge. My family was wealthy, you know. Spending a lot of money is refreshing for me. Please, Amy. Go ahead with the marriage and give me a taste of the good life. No, please stop this. Amy, let's run. My daughter and I dashed away from the high-rise apartment. The screams we heard were terrifying. However, the police arrived shortly after, and when we sneakily checked, it seemed there was a fight among the three of them. The high-rise is well soundproofed, so making some noise shouldn't have been too bothersome. But someone must have called the police due to noise in the common areas. Later, I found out that Tyler had angered his parents by calling us bottom dwellers of single-parent families. And they were upset with him for not finding out sooner that I was a lawyer's daughter. Tyler wanted a wife who could earn money like a servant outside the home. And his parents also wanted a servant, preferably a woman from a good family. I thought it was all so trivial, but there was more. Incredibly, while causing a commotion in the room, something unimaginable emerged. It was a photo of the mother engaged in unsavory acts with a man unknown to me. It seems it was hidden but came out during the fuss. This led to an even bigger showdown, and Tyler's father demanded a divorce. It was almost amusing to see the couple who had insulted me facing divorce. And audaciously, Tyler's mother came to my office, hoping to gain an advantage somehow. But after hearing her out, it was clear she was at fault, so I couldn't represent her. After all, she had lied to the other man, claiming to be a widow for 10 years. Tyler's mother was a housewife without her own money. So, Tyler's father wanted to claim damages from the other man, but since the mother had deceived him, it was unlikely they could get any money. That's why I declined the case. Unfortunately, as a lawyer, I don't take on just any case. To avoid being accused of fee fraud or retainer fraud, I don't accept cases that I know from the start are likely to be lost. This approach is better for both the client and the lawyer. Personally, I don't favor lawyers who take on any case only to end up saying they couldn't secure any compensation. A confident lawyer only takes on cases they know they can win. It might seem cold to clients, but it's to ensure they don't lose their retainer fees. Then, Tyler, learning I was a lawyer, started stalking my daughter, wanting to reconcile. My daughter was so distressed that she filed suit and a restraining order was obtained. This should keep him from approaching my daughter. It's outrageous how he changed his attitude completely once he found out I was a successful lawyer. After all, it was for my husband's sake that I decided to become a lawyer in the first place. After he passed away, I was at a loss about how to go on with my life. The thought of living in constant anxiety while raising my daughter alone nearly drove me mad. I wished I had a marketable skill, but I had no valuable qualifications. I had taken a bookkeeping course in high school, but I was working as an office worker, unable to utilize that qualification. It's hard to imagine now, but back then, many companies had female employees doing menial tasks like making tea and photocopying. I was initially assigned to the General Affairs Department instead of the Accounting Department where I wanted to be, due to a lack of vacancies. Day in, day out, making tea, I gained no real skills. Then, through a friend's introduction, I met my husband, and after dating, we got married. After becoming a housewife, I was dependent on my husband's income, and after our child was born. Child rearing was so demanding that I didn't even have the time to think about acquiring any qualifications. However, after my husband's death, I started questioning whether I should just carry on as before. Sure, there were survivor's benefits and life insurance. So, I could somehow manage to live. But the $100,000 from the life insurance would be spent quickly. Our home loan was covered by group credit life insurance, so I wouldn't have to pay the mortgage anymore. But that wasn't the point. I did some research and found a competent lawyer who informed me that it was possible to receive compensation even if the other driver had passed away and hadn't been insured voluntarily. After negotiations, I was able to receive compensation. At that time, I realized how powerful lawyers can be. As I said before, it wasn't about the money for me. I just couldn't bear the thought that my husband had died in such a terrible accident and we would receive nothing for it. I decided to become a lawyer myself and help others in the future. So, I began studying law. I enrolled in the law department of a correspondence university, balancing my studies with childcare. Honestly, it was manageable at first, but as the technical terms became more frequent, I struggled and had to constantly refer back to the initial summaries. The unique phrasing of statutes and case law was unfamiliar to me, so studying probably took twice as long as it would for the average person. But I couldn't let that defeat me if I wanted to become a lawyer, so I kept studying relentlessly. Somehow, I had to get through the bar exam to become a lawyer. Passing the bar exam felt like finally reaching the starting line. The bar exam was incredibly difficult. I solved many past questions and studied by sacrificing my sleep while my child was asleep. I probably studied 10 to 15 hours a day. So, I don't have any memories of taking my daughter, who was still a baby or toddler at the time, out anywhere. Looking back, I feel I was unfair to her. Thanks to my intense studying, I managed to pass the bar exam. After completing my legal training, I started working as a lawyer at a law firm. It was tough working every day while putting my daughter in daycare, but it was rewarding. Eventually, I decided to specialize and opened my own office. Based on my experience, I thought a law firm specializing in traffic accidents would be a good idea. With the increase in working women, various issues arose, so I also decided to offer consultations for women. Although social insurance labor consultants are knowledgeable about labor issues, lawyers come into play when it goes to court. One of my clients mentioned that within their organization, there was a noticeable disparity between men and women, with women being assigned only simpler tasks. It reminded me of my own experiences as a company employee. Years, even decades, have passed, and nothing has changed. I also received quite a few requests from men. The term toxic workplace has been around for a while now, but rather than decreasing, such workplaces seem to be on the rise. I've heard from men who feel like they're on the brink of a mental breakdown due to harsh working conditions. While reflecting on how everyone is striving hard to survive, I worked for my client. That's why my office specializes in traffic accidents and labor disputes. I'm also able to draw on my own experiences from my time as a company employee. More importantly, having lost my husband, I understand the feelings of families affected by traffic accidents and the complexity of the procedures involved, which has earned the trust of the victims I represent. Even as a single mother, I've made my own efforts. And I have indeed achieved results. Lately, the number of requests has increased, which I believe is a testament to the hard work of both myself and my staff. I'm committed to continuing to be a good lawyer for everyone.